Rita,
Yes. For some reason, it's not letting me use my camera. I don't know why.
I see you, Tony. Michael's here, Carl's here, so we're fine. Okay.
Rita, I'm calling you on your phone.
Elisa, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Was he good or bad?
Depends on the side. That's a good question.
Okay, so we're going to get started. This is our Laws and Rules Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, March 15th. And I am calling the meeting to order at 6:33. In attendance, as far as council members are concerned, we have Alderman Scott Childress, Barry, Alderwoman Barbara Hill, and Alderman Frankel. But council is in, I think that's not.
She was here, yeah, she'll be right back. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Never. Yes, court counsel. John. Just assistant tonight, okay. I don't know everybody's name, so welcome. Welcome to the Laws and Rules Committee meeting. So we are, you all are so welcome here. Thank you for being here. You may stay throughout the meeting. We will not be having public comment during our Laws and Rules Committee meeting. Okay, so I would ask that you all respect that. Is that okay? Yes? Thank you. Okay. So also joining us virtually is Alderman Tony Davis. Our clerk is here, Lisa Tenty. Marissa J. Hanson, she's with the Sustainability Office. Assistant Court Counsel. We also have Julie Noble in attendance virtually. She's our Sustainability Coordinator. Okay, and with that, let's, yes.
John Rose, Bowling Chair, Streets Advisory Council.
Thank you. Okay, everybody have an agenda?
Yep.
Good. All right, so let's start with our new business, and that is the watershed and ecosystem Bill of Rights, and Julie's gonna talk to us about that. Julie, can you hear us?
I can, thanks.
Good, you're up.
Thanks for having me. So I'm Julie Noble. I'm just trying to get the person who was supposed to speak to this issue back on the call. So back in, oh shoot, if we could just hold on 1 second, the person who's supposed to speak to this is just giving me a call. I'm sorry, on my work phone. 1 second.
Okay.
I got the impression that this thing was missing a page,
It did look like that.
because there's the last line, it doesn't end with a period, and it seems kind of short.
Yeah, I thought that myself.
Okay,
That's correct.
I sent Alyssa a question about it earlier, but,
Alyssa? Lisa? Alyssa.
Yes.
The Hudson River Watershed and Ecosystem Bill of Rights, it looks like we're missing a page.
I only got one page.
or is
You
there
only-
only a?
You only
is
got,
there-
oh, maybe this is just a, okay, maybe it's just grammar.
Section 3 is that one sentence.
Copy that.
I mean, it is a sentence, so we could just read it, it has a period. Okay.
Is it period or page? That's,
I think we need, yeah.
Lisa, you only received one page?
I believe so. I'm checking my, I'm looking through to find the original email. I thought it was just the one page.
Yes, you can grab one upstairs.
So I just spoke with Paul Tobin. He was declined from the meeting, so he's gonna try in from another name, which is Jody Fogel. So if Jody Fogel tries to log in, that would be the person who's to speak to this agenda item. But I will speak to it. I was approached back in January by Paul Tobin, who is the co-coordinator of the Native American events and ceremonies in the area and the spokesperson for the Caretaker Society and the founder of the Two Row Wampum Unity Pipe Carriers Circle. And he approached me to support a watershed bill of rights, an ecosystem bill of rights. And I said that I would help him to move to put this before the council. He sent me a draft of the watershed bill of rights, which I hadn't seen before. And I looked over it and gave some suggestions. And he said that he would be attending tonight to speak to it. Also Chief Mann. So I don't know if Chief Mann has been permitted to come into the meeting or if he was also declined from the meeting.
No, we didn't get a chief man. I'm still waiting for the other one to log back in.
Okay.
Julie,
Yep.
what meeting, can you tell us, is there just a missing period at the end of one page, or was there more than one page to the document?
There was one page.
Okay, there's just a missing period. Okay, thank you.
So he just called me on my work phone. Oh, here we go. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Now, is that Mr. Tobin?
Yes,
Okay.
great. So Paul, I just did an introduction. And so you have the floor to speak to the Bill of Rights. You're muted.
I'm not used to this laptop. So anyway, thank you all for throwing me out of the meeting and allowing me to come back. And then I was worried about getting in because my wife's name is on the other computer too. So anyway, so I'm Paul Tobin, spokesperson for the Caretaker Society, medicine person for the Quinnipiac Longwater people, a friend of the Ramapo, and my nephew Vince Mann, who is going to join us late if we're still here, who is a descendant of the original people who lived here and still live in Ulster County, in Kingston, and its areas. So I first became familiar with this proposal through a friend of mine, Ben Price, who successfully got Lake Erie designated as an entity with the rights, and also Lake out in Pennsylvania that had been decimated by fracking. And he's been a long time guy for promoting these things like nature's rights. Also, a friend of mine, grandmother Doreen Bennett, a Maori grandmother, who the Maoris actually got their river designated as an entity having the same rights as a person, and it was working well for them in New Zealand. So I've been involved in this kind of work forever, since I became passionate about it. When I was a kid, we used to be able to drink out of the streams if it went over the rocks for 20 yards, and I'm still here, so I drank out of that water. Now we can't do that. I don't know if we can get back to the way it was, but we certainly can make an improvement on how it is. I think for the city of Kingston, it would be a win-win situation because we would be the first ones in Ulster County here and maybe in a southern tier to do this. And it would be, so to say, a feather in our cap if we did it. It's an attraction. We have all the waterways run through the city of Kingston that come from the mountains, and the ones that don't actually go out to the Delaware. And I think there's only one of those. So in essence, we'll be protecting the rights for the generations, for our children, for the people who want to come and live here and have a good quality of life. So is that enough, or do you want me to go on? And if you have any questions you want to ask me about it, I know there's a proposal in the county for it to be put on to as an agenda or something like that. Not an agenda, but to come to a vote of some kind or other. And I think this would help the county out if we did that also. So it's us supporting each other. And I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't want to improve the qualities of life for ourselves and for our children. So that's it. Julie wrote this up and tailored it to the city of Kingston, which I thought was appropriate, and I think it's great. And I'm just hoping that we'll get this through and get it passed and be at the forefront of of this movement that hopefully will go on and on and on and on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coleman. Julie.
Oh, Vince Mann is actually wanting to get in now. So, oh, there he is.
Hello, lovely people.
You including me in that too?
Of course.
Sir, can you just state your name, please?
Sure. My name is Chief Vincent Mann. I am the Turtle Clan chief of the Ramapo Lenape Nation here in New Jersey, Southern New York, on the border.
Okay, and you had some comments?
Yeah. Excuse me for being late. I offer my apologies. I had a very important meeting. Not that this isn't. nature's rights are something that's really important to us, not just as Indigenous people, but for all humans. It's been so long that society as a whole has been removed from our connection to the natural environment. And, obviously beginning in the 1970s, when the environment began to get some protections, that's been, 53 years. And, obviously it hasn't been enough. And so when we think about the rivers and the brooks and the streams, it is inherent of us and people who are like-minded, to want to protect them and give them the rights that they deserve. We wouldn't, dump oil in our neighbor's well, right? or cut down every single tree, or take all of our refuse and dump it into someone's yard, where their kids play. And so by giving nature's rights to those rivers and streams, it affords that living entity, a much greater protection, much greater than we as individuals and organizations that are out there can provide for it. It is a movement that has begun, and it's been happening for a few years now. And when it comes to municipalities, and certain communities along very important waterways, that's really where we Indigenous people, and again, like-minded people, have an opportunity to actually cause an effect, right? To actually be able to see that nature's rights, are things that had already been a part of the Constitution of the United States.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, did you have anything else to say on this? No?
No.
Okay. Do you have any questions for either Julie, Tobin, hey, Carl, Rennie?
Well, my main question, I think it's great, but what would be the practical consequences of legal bill of rights in terms of legal enforcement? Let's say the city wants to do something that is perceived as violating it. What happens then? Does this have any power under the law? Is it only kind of moral persuasion? What's the impact of this in the practical world of politics and action?
So I'll take a stab at that. What is the legal ramifications if we don't act to protect and save our rivers and don't give them, the rights that they deserve? It doesn't mean that there is not mediation or mitigating, certain issues when it comes to being able to create something. What it means is that corporations and homeowners, quite frankly, right, have a higher standard of living, because, the water that is on this planet is the only water that's here. And whether we use it to ferry coal, 200 miles away to Texas from Arizona, we have seen the land there, have a big depression, right? And the Navajo don't have water to drink. So, I think that your question is very valid. Thank you.
I think it has the same teeth that any ordinance that would be passed by this group would have. And then it would be, so if it's an ordinance and it's signed into law, then it's a law. And then the people that agree to that then have to obey that law.
That's my question. Is it binding law, or is it simply a principle that a future government could choose to disregard? I'm for it either way, but obviously one has a lot more teeth than the other.
Yeah, it should start out, right, as a resolution, right?
So,
And
so
then,
in the early stage of moving toward it becoming an
Right.
ordinance, is that, do I understand you correctly?
that would, in my opinion, yes. Because,
Okay.
because public opinion does matter.
Thank you very much. I'm complete. Thank you. Right.
Well, there's a couple of word changes I'd like to see at some point, but I'm wondering at lines 4 to 5 in section 1, there's this reference to direct dumping of industrial wastes. And I'm wondering, that seems kind of limited to me. So I'm wondering what that means specifically, and if there's a way that we can widen that out, because you know, one of the things that of course is always really important is the concept of runoff. So like lots of, if farmers are using too much nitrogen-based attendance to their soil, that becomes runoff, which can be completely dangerous to a system like the Hudson River. So I'm just wondering if there's a way, if there was a reason why it was limited to direct, or if that was, or if it's possible for us to expand that.
You know, I again, I'll take a stab. I think, you know, personally, everything that we think about as a whole, right, is geared towards corporations, right? And it does need to be expanded upon. It does mean that, you know, people who have a septic tank and haven't had it pumped in 15, 20 years and it's faulty, and, you know, women's hormones and pills and all of those other things, you know, go out and then leach into that river as well as the farming agriculture community. There are ways to mitigate, you know, that abuse of those waters that flow into that, which then flows into the Hudson River. You know, there are current organic, you know, systems that can be utilized to help raise the quality of the water. And, you know, and being able to eventually, this is the small step in trying to get these rivers and streams, you know, classified as a C1 river, right? Where you can actually go into it. I mean, my wife and I and about 10 other people, we canoed Wallkill River from Vernon, New Jersey, all the way north 70 miles. And we literally got to see the quality of the water change, you know, every so many miles. And when we came to those agricultural fields, one of the other issues that was happening was that they were big time into an extractive process where they had 4 mega 8-inch pumps that were pumping the water out of the river to their fields, which in effect was causing the river itself, you know, to die. Right. And then as we get higher up towards Ellenville and places like that, the quality of the water seemingly was getting better. But this is, again, this is one small step that we can then go to another town, right? And if the towns along the way agree to give nature's rights to these rivers, these living entities, you know, I think that we would be in a good standing. I do agree with you that the language needs to be a little bit broader, you know, but the question comes is whose foot do we step on, right? Do we want to step on those toes a little bit gentler than not?
My next question has to do with the term healthy state. Julie, is there an objective measure that you have of healthy state, or is that something that we would have to develop and work on to figure out what that means?
There's no objective measure.
Okay.
And there are already things happening in Ulster County along the round out where they were mitigating the flow of runoff from the fields into the creek by planting along that. And there's a lot of towns and villages have things that are already in process towards helping those streams. So we would actually be helping them. And what Chief Mann said too, if Kingston started here, then I plan to go to the next town, to the next village, go all the way up till we've got all of Ulster County and then into Orange County and down to New Jersey and up the rivers. So this would be a start. So we would kind of be the good kind of pioneer that is actually respecting the resources and making it available to everyone.
You know,
So-
oh, sorry, Uncle Paul.
Yeah, an ordinance means that it's a law. So that law in itself has teeth. If we wanted to expand on that, we could, but an example was when we were going to do the treaty signing down at the Maritime Museum, somebody had called in that there was some wastewater coming in from one of the runoffs coming down that wasn't going through the treatment program. And there were 10 DEP people down there investigating it that were right on it. And so I think there's already an enforcement thing in place that can be done. And we could actually improve by educating a lot of the farmers, and we've been doing that too, of how it would benefit them not to pollute the creek that we're dependent on. So anyway.
There is also already water quality standards, right? And drinking water quality standards. And, you know, wouldn't it be just an amazing thing if we collectively came together to make sure that we could, you know, do an annual stocking, you know, of sturgeon, right? Like my uncle's tribe does in Michigan, Little River Band of Ottawa, right? I mean, these are things that there are things that are already, you know, in existence. You know, a C1 river is given one of the highest levels of protection, right? But you can't have a C1 river in Kingston when, you know, the other 80 miles or other 100 miles on the other end doesn't have that protection.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by C1 river?
So a C1 river has a standard of high quality, you know, naturally occurring, you know, let's say brook trout, right? Brown trout, and they have to have a certain quality of water in which to live, right? And so those kind of standards that exist out there can be, you know, we can retrieve those and we can try to take that wordage and put that in there.
Great, I'll suggest that then when we get to that point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So two things. So in section 3, it talks about, it says no government or business entity of any form shall violate the rights of the Hudson River watershed. So I guess my question is, what would those violations look like? And would they be set by the legislature, or who would be in charge of that?
There's already regulations by the EPA, by corporations that take their water and expel it into water bodies. They definitely are not stringent enough, right? They are definitely on the side of corporations, not on the side of all of us human beings and our relatives that live in these water bodies. As far as, basically it would start like this. We would come to Kingston, right? And then we go to Hurley, and then we go to the next town, and we go to Ellenville. And then as we are going along and creating this upwell of people who are like-minded and trying to protect the water, not just for ourselves, but for all of our relatives that live in the natural world, you know, then what happens is that we have a county to go to, right? And so we say we go to Orange County or Ulster County and we say, you know, all of these towns that are here, right? The citizens and the governmental bodies are wanting to afford these rights to these rivers and streams. We want you to do it at that level, right? And then we would work towards going to the New York State Legislature to come to them with that.
Okay. And since you mentioned C1 River, any examples of, we have any waterways close to us or around us that are C1s?
So every river that flows into a reservoir, right? You know why it's a reservoir, right? It's a reservoir because that reservoir is giving people water, which you need to survive, right? And so I'll give you an example. Here in New Jersey, above the Ringwood Mines Federal Superfund site, there is a brook that runs right through it that collects all kinds of toxic material, and less than a mile away, that flows into the Wanacue Reservoir. Right. Now, the issue here is that it's not the state, right? It's the federal government who is failing the people at this point, right? So any water body that is flowing,
You gotta keep it open. Sorry about that.
it's okay. Any water body that is flowing into a potable water source, like a reservoir, right? That would be something that needs to carry that status of the highest protections, right? Sometimes you may see a manhole cover, right? And you'll see those little tags on there, and it shows a fish, and it says, do not dump any toxic material here because this is flowing to a drinking water source, right? Nobody really notices them, but now if you start looking, you're going to start to see that, right? And it is that all of these things have come to fruition before, and they just kind of got lost along the way, right? Since the pandemic, right, that we're still in, we human beings really want to make sure that the water we're drinking is safe, that the air we're taking in is safe, that the ground that kids are playing on is safe, or that we're growing the vegetables in.
Okay. And so the next question, I thought I had two, but the next one is for Julie. So we have the Bill of Rights in front of us, but it also mentions in the correspondence a resolution. I don't see a resolution.
The Bill of Rights is the resolution.
The Bill of Rights is the resolution. Okay. All right, any other questions? Yes.
First, Elisa, can you let Naima in? I guess she's been trying to get in.
She's in.
Disregard. Okay, so some of the questions that I have, I'm a little confused on who would exactly oversee this, because it's coming to us, but then it's mentioned that the legislator would be implementing the policy. So, what is our role in this today?
I personally, I think that the role here, is to establish by resolution that this is the thought, that this is the feeling, that this is the spirit of what this community and the indigenous people that come there as well would like to see, right? And once we establish that here, we have that to establish it in those other towns. The authority, the immediate authority would be, the municipality, right? Until we get to the point where we have enough municipalities to take it to the county and then have the county pass that.
Are you referring to the third paragraph? The word legislature?
Yes.
Because that's a quotation, and it's a reference to New York State legislature.
Okay, but I believe Julie also mentioned, or someone mentioned that it was going to go to Ulster County as well.
Yeah.
So the legislature, so that's why I prompted that.
Okay.
And then the second question that I have is just, I guess, looking for more of a definitive answer as to shall include adequate provision for the abatement of air and water pollution and of excessive and unnecessary noise. I guess, and I'm looking at the actual one online in the New York State Constitution, and it really doesn't delve deep into what exactly that means. I mean, excessive noise could be anything from children playing loudly to heavy machinery operating 24/7.
Uncle Paul?
Well, I didn't know that that was in there, but I would say we're reasonable people. And so we would make reasonable decisions about what that meant. And Kingston is sovereign unto itself, separate from the county and separate from the state. So it can establish, within itself and within its constitution, rules that it would like to see followed, as long as they don't go, against the laws of the county and the state. And this wouldn't be going against any of those laws, but it would be establishing a precedent. And I think, so maybe it can be right in what reasonable people would do. Maybe that can be written into it. Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say about that.
I love what you're doing. I'm a little bit concerned that the drafting is not finalized. So I understand this, you're asking us to vote in approval of a document that isn't as perfected as it might be. So this gives me some pause, not about it in general, on principle, but in voting in approval today, because I think you have just put a number on it, like a B+ document, it could be an A document. And I invite you to revisit it and come back to us. That's my thought. And I think we will bless, I'm inclined to think we're going to bless something that really hits all the marks the way we hope we will. I don't know if that is shared by others.
Actually, I was going to say the same thing. I think that it needs to be a more defined resolution. And, there's a lot of questions here tonight. And so I'm definitely in favor of it, but I would like to just see it a little bit more tighter and maybe the wording drafted in a more defined resolution.
If I could, I would say that what this document represents is the thoughts of us people. And I would say that it would be irresponsible of us who have brought this to you to think that we could create a document that would not have any input from you. And so I personally see this as an opportunity to put before you what it is that we want to see done, and then to have this input that everyone is providing, which is absolutely incredible, right? Then take that and then put that into this document as well. And then we have a document that we have both collectively had input into and address and mitigate any concerns that anybody has, and then put that forward. I think that that would ideally be the way that that I would, as chief man and my responsibilities, that is how I would perceive that to be.
Okay, I agree. Yes.
Could I suggest then that we set a date? And so those of us here who have some suggestions, so for word changes or for clarity and what have you, that then we send our suggestions. It makes sense to send it to Julie, I think, and Julie can coordinate. Does that sound right, Julie?
That's fine.
What date do we want to set?
For comments to get to them for.
Yeah, to get to Julie.
15th.
We do 2 weeks.
2
That
weeks?
gives 2 weeks to
30th,
come up with things.
March 30th,
Okay.
March 12th,
March 29th, the 30th, what is what?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Huh?
Doesn't matter.
In 2 weeks will be the 29th. Yeah, that's okay.
May I just jump in for a second? I'm also might suggest that you want to talk to a lawyer about this, because lawyers are experts at drafting documents, and they may be able to really help you fine tune it and make sure it's really on the money, because it is going to become some law in some form at some point. So It's hard to do that as layperson and really nail it.
Yeah, that, all of those things, I receive well. That is us working cohesively together for the betterment and benefit of all of us. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Julie? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate it. We're glad that you've initiated this. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank
Thanks, Chief Man.
Thank you, Julie.
The pitch canal.
La Pitch Canal. Okay, we're moving to old business. And number one is the operation of the shared bicycles, e-bicycles. I think this was, we sent this back. We had some questions about it.
You were wondering about costs.
Were you able to get any costs associated with this? Yes?
Yeah, I had shared the costs the last month, but I can bring those up again if you'd like. I also see that John Grossbolen is present today from the Complete Streets Advisory Council. Since the last meeting, we did get comments directly from the Complete Streets Council, and we did address specific comments specific to things like the specs about the headlights, which was modified in our draft, specifications about parking, so locations and restrictions about parking. We addressed a concern about age requirements, about helmets, about the use of scooters in bike lanes, about the language in the draft about electric versus non-electric bicycles and how that applies to different types of devices, and then also about the geofencing. So I've been working with Corporation Counsel, and Larissa is here tonight, and we have an updated version of the proposal. I haven't presented that to you because I don't expect there to be a vote on that tonight, but we did invite folks from the Hudson Valley Bike Share and also the SUNY New Paltz Bike Share to attend to tonight's meeting. I don't know if anyone is present from any of those organizations, but I know John is there. But I believe I did speak to the costs last month, but I'm happy to pull those up again if that is one of the concerns you wanted to follow up on.
Please, would you?
Sure. I don't know if there's other things while I'm doing that, if folks wanted to discuss.
Well, John's here. Can we invite him to speak to this? Otherwise, you're showing up for nothing.
I can speak to it.
Yeah. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Yeah, there were a few things that, we identified at Complete Streets Advisory Council that need some tweaking. And they are just tweaks. I mean, conceptually, we're in favor of having bike share ordinance in place. As it is now, somebody could come in and just set one up and we wouldn't have any say so. But if we put an ordinance in place that sets some guidelines, that would be a good thing. And one of the things that I personally keep coming back to is the fact that we want this as a transportation opportunity. Folks that need to get from their homes to say Kingston Plaza for shopping and don't know if it's possible with any of the share systems, but it'd be wonderful to have cargo bikes and trikes with baskets and things that people could actually ride to, say Hannaford, get their groceries and be able to get them back home. And we've got some suggestions on, and I don't think it's actually in the ordinance, but related to the PED bicycle master plan, some suggestions about how we can move folks safely from, say, Stony Run into Kingston Plaza using the OW rail trail, bike lanes, projects like that. And one thing, I know Julie brought this up at other meetings, I'm not sure if people understood where she was going with it, but Right now, it's written up as a dock system. In other words, you have to pick up and drop off the shared vehicle at the docking station. And I don't know where we would land with the count and where they would be located. That would have to be figured out. But I see some pitfalls with that. I know a lot of you don't know me, but I'm a veteran long distance bicycle tourist. And this past summer, I did about a 1,200-mile ride. And I intentionally took a route so that I could look at bike share systems in different cities, the rail trails, canalway trails, non-motorized transportation route. So I rode up to Albany, Niagara Falls, Buffalo, Cleveland, Canton, Ohio, over to Pittsburgh, down to Washington, D.C. So I saw a lot of different systems in place. And I think we might do better with a dockless system, quite frankly. I know there's some aversion to that because people are afraid of, I'll just call it bicycle litter. But I don't know if that's a real problem if we've got constraints on the number of vehicles available. If we've got a limit of 100, 200 bicycles. If anything, the dockless system would allow us to figure out where we need dock stations. If we're picking where they're going, they may be in places that are almost useless because of the constraints that are built into the ordinance. That was one criticism I have. I know Julie said that in different words. But that's my biggest concern, really, with it is maybe we really should think about a dockless system. Let that inform us where we need docks, especially if we go to an e-bike system where we need charging stations. Other than that, we're in favor of it. We're advocates for non-motorized transportation from the transportation standpoint, but also to help with congestion and to help with pollution problems.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the dockless station. I think that was one of the big concerns that was raised before the, lack of a better phrase, bicycles litter. I think though, in the last resolution, there was something about fines being assessed if the e-sharing bike system was violated. Julie, was that in there? Yes.
Yep, so again, the regulation, the local law that is being presented is really targeted at, the crux of it is about the operator. So the fines themselves would be to the operator, and if they violated their contract or their, this local law in terms of their operation. So it would be consistent with I think it states that they should pay fee consistent with the fee schedule established in chapter 217. So you would all have to establish and update the fee schedule, which would be including the permit application fees, the permit renewal fees, and the non-compliance fees. And those all apply to the operator themselves. So whoever we bring in as the operator to operate the system, not to the user of the bicycle themselves. Any fines or any violation that the user violates would be a ticket from the police department.
Okay.
The other thing about the dockless system is it gives users the opportunity to end the ride at a destination so that they can shop or recreate if they're going to one of the parks and end their ride in terms of the fees that they're paying, and it would give somebody else the opportunity to use it. With the dock system, you can't end the ride except at a docking station. So right now, the way it's written is they can't have the docking stations on public property or on private property. So they wouldn't be able to put one, say, Kingston Plaza. I understand we can negotiate You can't put one in Kingston Plaza and we're trying to provide transportation for folks to go down to Hanover to shop. And they have to pay for that ride while they're in shopping. And they would have to secure the bike while they're shopping, so somebody else doesn't use it on their dime. I mean, it presents the challenges. And that's why I think, personally, I'm an advocate for a dockable system, at least in the initial phases to inform where maybe docks should go.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained that. I just wanted to ask, and I don't want to put Julie or Marissa or anybody else on the spot, because we didn't talk about it beforehand, but did you happen to get any examples of sample permits from other jurisdictions?
Now, I was looking at the installed base and what people were doing. And in places, well, Albany, Schenectady, they've got a share system, which I was familiar with already. But when I got into places like Canton, Ohio, they had shared scooters and bikes. And interestingly enough, there was very little downtown activity, even vehicles. I took photos in the middle of the day standing in front of the county office building in the middle of the street, with no risk of being hit by a car. There was that little traffic there. I don't think the shared system was doing much good in that particular part of Canton. But elsewhere around there, from speaking to some of the locals, it did get utilized. And that's why this, the stock versus dockless thing came along. Put docks someplace, if you're no good there.
Yep, and that was my second question, was about the, as currently written, this contemplates municipal docking stations, right? But there is an opportunity for private, for their own interest, for, you know, any private sort of a coffee shop or some other shopping place to put in other cities, for example, there are docks that are set up by a private property owner because they want to drive traffic to their
Well,
space.
unless I'm mistaken, this is a vendor arrangement, and they would install the docking stations. They wouldn't be, you know, maintained or owned by the city.
Right, but we were talking before about having them on municipal, in public spaces.
In public spaces, but privately maintained.
Right, but I guess if we transition or if this gets sort of further developed, there could be additional docking stations, even under the current model, created just through private resources and not at a cost to the city.
Yeah, and the trick is identifying where, because if you're always forcing folks back to a dock,
Right.
you don't know where they really need it.
Mhm.
You know, that was a chicken and egg problem perhaps, but
Right,
that's why I was kind of leaning towards docks.
right.
And I think what I saw out there, some areas, they clearly had dock systems. Other areas, they may have had some kind of a hybrid where the dock was in.
Okay. Julie, you have those numbers?
I do. If I'm able to share my screen, I will share those up. So Ellie in my office did research to other municipalities that are similar in size to the city of Kingston. The first that you see on line 2 is Ithaca. I mean, obviously this is hard for you guys to see, but I'll just walk you through it. Ithaca, 31,000 people. Basically, their startup costs were $1,250 a bike. In Colorado, they had 18,000 people. Their startup costs were $2,500 a bike. There's an example in Athens, Ohio, for 24,000 people. That's 1,062 per bike. Got an example from Iowa at where they got a grant, but $266 a bike, but they used manual bikes. We're generally talking about e-bikes here. An example from Michigan of $4,000 a bike. It is a little. I'm sorry, is there discussion going on, or is that background stuff?
Just 1 second.
Okay. So generally, it does vary. It seems like it varies from municipality to municipality, but generally, it seems like it's around between $1,000 to $4,000 a bike. With the ARPA money that we have set aside, we've set aside $100,000. With previous indications from other operators, they've indicated 20 to 25 bikes in our municipality, and even if it was $4,000 a bike, which is the max that we found for similar sized communities, we would still have the capacity to implement that kind of program, even if it was the max. So obviously there's a lot of variability. There's a lot of variability, and what we did find is that a lot of municipalities start conservatively and then ramp up, and take the opportunity to really read their community and understand what the response is, right? And so that would be something that we would need to explore.
Okay, okay. So there's a updated proposal then coming our way?
There is. So Marissa, I don't know if you wanted to add anything at all that we may have missed, but we do have an updated draft that has not been shared yet with Complete Streets or Live Well. We wanted to see if there's any other additional feedback from today. But I can clean up that version, that red marked version, and circulate that to the council, common council, and as well as the Live Well and Complete Streets. Get any additional final thoughts and bring it back next meeting, unless you have other things that you would like to follow up on.
No, well, let me not speak for everyone.
Well, I would just like to endorse the dockless notion as a short-term provision. There's a wonderful Christopher Alexander's book, Pattern Language, says if you want to find out where people are going to walk, don't put paths down, let them walk. And that'll tell you what to do. It's the same principle here. So I think it's a great way to figure out where to put docking stations if we do in fact get there. So I totally endorse that. I would encourage you to look at including that in your revised.
Okay, I will need
Is that a
some.
problem, Julie?
No, it's just that currently the proposal is set for a docked system. So there's a couple options. One is that we make the proposal more fluid so that it is open to either docked or dockless, or there needs to be consensus on docked or dockless. You know,
I go with door A.
you go with A, which is make it open.
Make it open, let the wisdom of time take us down the road, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, yeah, I think Michael was first. Michelle?
I guess my question is, are we at the question stage or discussion stage?
Question. Just question, because there's not gonna be any movement on this, so.
So I don't have questions, I see.
Michelle?
So my question is just with the numbers that you presented, Julie, if we were to go dockless, does that change the numbers? The price?
Just looking at it quickly, so the Ithaca one was dockless. Colorado is docked.
That's right.
Ohio was not, it does not say. Iowa is docked. The South Carolina does not say, and the Michigan does not say. So I don't know that it would, well, I would presume it would have to change the cost. I would assume it would be cheaper if it was dockless because we're not paying for the infrastructure of the docks. But we would be paying for the service of I can't remember the word. Putting everything back. We're gathering everything.
Returning,
So,
engaging.
Okay.
so I can talk to Corp Council about thoughts about the docked versus dockless, and also just gather general feedback from Complete Streets and Live Well. And if anyone from this council, Laws and Rules, or generally the Common Council has comments on it, you can certainly get them back to me. I will present you with a updated proposal for the next meeting and go from there.
Okay, I think Michael had a question.
Yeah, this might be for multiple people, but is it possible to have two separate resolutions, one to put rules and regulations in place so that these companies can't just come in and do whatever they want, and then actually have a secondary one for what is being proposed afterward?
We can split this.
Okay, because I think having rules and regulations in place makes perfect sense, but then I still feel there's a lot more. So I don't know, would that be something now or?
If that's what the committee wants to do, if you want to, if you're content with one of them, but.
Well, we have to see.
I think,
Right,
well, we
but-
have to see, well, tonight, so Julie's gonna get back to us with a updated proposal. And I think that's when we would move forward with things. Okay?
Yes, just because Marissa's here and I know she's been working with Julie, if there are specific recommendations on how the split should occur that anybody wants to, share with Marissa and Julie, that could help sort of speed the process so that we don't have them working and then you come back and you have a different idea about how the legislation should be split.
Right, so
it doesn't
maybe,
have to
so
happen
maybe that
tonight,
should
but-
be included in the comments and suggestions that we are sending to her by March 30th. Okay. Well, oh, Michael, I said the 30th. Michael says the 29th.
Your show. I'm assuming.
Any other questions on this? No? Okay, thank you, Julie. I really appreciate you going back and getting all of this additional information and taking the comments of the committee under advisement. So I know you're doing a lot of work on it, so I do appreciate it. Thank
No
you.
problem. And thanks, John, for coming tonight.
Thank you, John. Okay.
We'll be both our seat. Got a full house.
Okay.
Charge for it first.
All right, so we're going to move on to resolution 58 of 2023. And that is.
Do you want to do resolution 43 since Julie's still here?
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped that one. I'm sorry. Yeah, resolution 43 of 2023, and that's the, to approve an opt-out community distribution generation, the CGD program. Any further comments on, do we need Julie to re-explain this to us?
Oh, I just let Julie know that it was sent back, but I didn't send back specific questions, so if you have any specific questions.
Yeah.
So I did view the caucus meeting to understand some concerns. I also want to just acknowledge that I have 3 members of folks here to help to answer questions. Brad Tito is here from Power Market, Susan Gillespie and Dana Hall are here from the Mid-Hudson Energy Transition. I can't tell if anyone else is here. There's a lot of people in the room. Hi, everybody. So if there are specific questions, certainly we are all here to help answer those.
Tony, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Yes, Tony.
Thank you. I thought, and I was reading the legislation earlier today, and I thought there was discussion about putting something in there in regard to more thorough how people can opt out of this. I think from what this is looks like everybody's gonna get in, even though it says opt out. But the language, there's gonna be some type of language in there to tell people how they can go about not or getting out of this program, which I consider opt out of this program. And I didn't see that in there, but I thought that was some discussion at the last Laws and Rules, or maybe I was wrong.
Actually, I wouldn't mind stepping in at this point to just interject some clarification. So in 2021, or 2022 rather, the council voted to advance community choice aggregation. And as part of that, we brought on Mid-Hudson Energy Transition to advance that process. And we have been, and we've been advancing through the sort of back end part of what that process looks like, which means gathering together the information that we need for what we want our CCA to look like, filing necessary documentation with the Public Service Commission. So right now, we don't even have approvals yet to be a community choice aggregation program in the city of Kingston. We haven't even reached out to the community yet about this at all. So nothing has really started yet. No one's bills have changed. No one has been asked to change anything about their lives at all. This particular legislation is not about our CCA. This resolution was not about the city of Kingston's CCA. It's about advocacy on a state level. You know, so one of the tools in our toolkit that we were looking to do, in addition to the typical CCA, the typical community choice aggregation system, which would typically be a bulk purchase of renewable energy, green energy, we are looking to go beyond that with a 3.0 version, a more advanced version, to be able to target every resident in the city of Kingston beyond just green power, but also energy efficiency, and more rapidly looking at options that will directly impact our low to moderate income community. One of those options is this opt-out community distributed generation, which is basically things like community solar, an option where we use local energy to have an option for green power. This tool, as part of our larger toolkit, was an option that the Public Service Commission needs to approve. And so far they haven't approved it. We have, they've talked about it, and what we're doing now is advocating that they include this tool as part of the toolkit, which would increase our portfolio of all of our options. So this ask to you all has nothing to do with advancing our personal CCA. It's nothing about opting or allowing people to opt in or opt out. It's about advocating to the state so that they change their system. And actually, I want to defer over to Susan and Brad and Dana to clarify anything, questions that may be arising here, or that I have that they want to add to what I'm stating.
Sure. Thanks, Julie. So hi, I'm Dana Hall. I'm counsel and board secretary for the Mid-Hudson Energy Transition. We're a not-for-profit organization. We've signed a contract with the city of Kingston to be your service provider and help administer this program. The only thing I think I would add to what Julie just said about the community solar that we want the Public Service Commission to authorize is that it's a tool that we can use to provide renewable energy credits to low-income customers. We can't put low-income customers on a supply contract unless we can guarantee savings. And the opt-out community solar is designed so that it's only it's a 10% discount on the electricity price. So what we're doing is, if the Public Service Commission does authorize this, we would do contracts with community solar farms, and those bill credits would be applied in the order of enrollment to low-income customers first, so that they can get the benefit of energy savings as well as getting solar. So I do, if you permit me, I have a little handout that explains these acronyms. I don't know if you're interested. I'm happy to share this with you. I'll give one to Barbara. I have plenty, so. Pass them down. Sure you have enough. And if you want, I can try to explain a little bit more about what.
Can one be put into my mailbox, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll send this to you and you can. Okay.
Do you want a hard copy in your mailbox, Tony, or an email?
Yes. No. If you could just send a hard copy in my mailbox.
It'll be in your
I appreciate
mailbox. Yep.
So, yeah, so community, it's called opt-out CDG. So CDG is community distributed generation. Distributed generation is just, any kind of eligible technology connected to the grid at the distribution level. So it's solar plus hydro plus wind plus biofuel, what other kind of technology applies. We we get lazy and call it community solar, but it's the New York State wants to be precise and fair and technology neutral, so they call it DG. And it's always been opt-in. It's the kind of thing where you make a choice. You get an ad in the mail, you see something on TV, you hear about it, you sign up, you opt in. That's what community solar is, owned by private companies. And so that's what the first two bullets are about. Community choice aggregation, as Julie explained, Kingston adopted the local law already. It went actually unanimously through this Laws and Rules Committee and passed unanimously by the council in 2021. And there's a little bit of legislative intent on why, but there is a shortfall in CCA because, as I mentioned a minute ago, the supply contracts, it's hard to get renewable energy supply, which is what Kingston wants for our climate goals, but also make sure that it's less expensive than the utility rate. It's just challenging to do that. So while we want to get a renewable energy supply contract, we're going to exclude low-income people. So the Public Service Commission authorizes and oversees our work, but low-income, and they do that because they want to protect the choices that people have already made. So if somebody's already signed up to a community solar project that they've opted into, we cannot automatically enroll them. We can't override that choice. We can only automatically enroll those customers who are just with Central Hudson. And one point I would make is if you move to town and you get an electricity account, you're automatically enrolled with Central Hudson. It's already utility. You don't have, you can choose to opt out of Central Hudson and sign up for community solar or other alternate suppliers. But so this is the same thing. This is the city kind of taking control over the choice, and the city is more answerable to your constituents than a big utility like Central Hudson. So you're trying to help your city make the choice about climate, and having opt-out solar is a way that low-income people can be included too. That's basically the gist of it. There's more on the other side. I probably said enough. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you.
Thank you. But those that would be automatically enrolled, they would also have a choice to not.
Absolutely. And you did ask about more robust explanations on how to opt out. The Public Service Commission just issued an order in January where they are going to be putting out new rules on making sure that administrators really do thorough and consistent and measured outreach. One of the things that Mid-Hudson Energy Transition is most proud of is our community roots, and we're forming a community council. So by the way, if anyone in here is interested in what we do, please come see us afterwards, because we'd love to get you involved. But we want the people to be making the choice. And so we're going to do a lot of outreach. We've already been on radio shows. We've already been doing a lot of public-facing information, even though we don't have a supply contract yet. The official outreach period, when you get that letter notifying you how to opt out, you won't get that until you actually have a supply contract. And we're months away from that. So in the meantime, we're just laying the groundwork so that people have heard of Kingston Community Energy, know that there's something, this whole CCA that's coming, and we're going to help you make your buildings more energy efficient and healthier air quality and that kind of thing. Save people money. You know, that's what we need to do.
Okay. Either of you want to add anything?
Not unless there are questions.
Any questions? No? We do it.
Yeah. Where to begin?
Well, okay, let's start.
Say it with the right, like.
So then the resolution then that we have before us is a request for adoption of a resolution in support of the Public Service Commission to authorize opt-out CDG. Motion? Second? Discussion? Michael?
Okay. So I spoke with Zach Gordon, who's on the town board of Saugerties, and I guess this was attempted to be implemented a while ago, and there were problems from the start. One of the biggest complaints is customers didn't see the savings that they said they were going to get. The billing issue was a disaster. People were having issues with opting out. Some people were told they were removed from the plan and they weren't. There was it was not transparent at all what was going on. People were not well informed at all. And the perception was that it seemed to be very rushed on there. And then I spoke to someone that works at Central Hudson, and they gave the example of another coworker's grandmother who had to pay $40 a month to opt into it, and she saved $11 a month in the savings because she wasn't a big electric user. And from what was explained, they will not see the savings that they're expected if they don't use a lot of electric. Getting back to the people in Saugerties, they thought the mailers were fraudulent, so they just threw it away thinking it was spam mail. And my just general rule is the forced compliance. If people want to be a part of it, then have them opt in. It's going to be way more of an issue to have people opt out, especially when, as was mentioned earlier, the New York State Public Service Commission put the program on hold in 2021, and they were expected to restart the program, but there were concerns regarding program operation, oversight, and enforcement rules. And the PSC themselves called for more study to alternatives to opt-out services. So if the New York State Public Service Commission sees problems and are asking for alternatives to opt out, why would we try and force this upon the citizens of Kingston? And then I have a lot more questions that go into the actual services and fees themselves. But, you know, again, the Public Service Commission has had lots of questions and concerns regarding this. Are the rates going to be fixed or variable? Instances have occurred and are still occurring where customers do not receive a utility bill for several months and later receive multiple bills within a short period, or a single high bill that is for an extended period. Reports of CDG members not receiving appropriate credits for their bills. I could go on, and in a time where there's so much turmoil with Central Hudson, it just seems like we're just adding even more uncertainty to the mix with this.
Who would like to respond?
Sure, I'll respond. So first I think there might be a little conflation of CCA itself and the concept of opt-out CDG. So CCA in Saugerties, it's still, they passed a local law just like Kingston did, and they didn't rescind that local law. So they still have the authority to sign a supply contract with the CCA administrator if they so choose to do that. What was canceled was their supply contract, which was a pretty bad contract that Jewel, who's our competitor, Jewel Assets enrolled Saugerties and Carlson Gardner, a lot of other towns with Columbia Utilities. And that supplier failed to hedge their purchases for the full term of the contract. And then with COVID and Ukraine and energy prices spiking, they couldn't satisfy the price of their contract, and they breached the contract, and 23,000 customers were kicked off their CCA supply contract. So that is a fact. That's the news that people were very upset about. That's one of the issues that you addressed. But it didn't change the fact that Saugerties still gave itself through local law the authority to enter into supply contracts. They still have that authority. And in fact, they've talked to us. They're also talking to Jewel about doing it again. They talked to us to ask us what our program is. And what we told them, one of the things we like to say is that electricity is only 13% of greenhouse gas emissions. So while electricity contracts are good, like you said, it's a mess. It's a disaster. And it's really hard in this market to predict what will happen. But buildings and transportation is 32% and 28% of emissions. So what Mid-Hudson Energy Transition does that's different from Jewel is focus also on those sectors and try to offer programs around energy efficiency. And while I'm not going to downplay the importance of a supply contract, what I'm saying to you is all those building programs that we offer, they're opt-in, they're not opt-out. It's only if you want to sign up. Brad, you want to add something?
Just that Saugerties does not have an opt-out CDG program. They never have
Nobody
an opt-out CDG program. So all the criticisms that I've heard that you just mentioned about Saugerties in particular, those really relate to CCA in general. And again, the council did pass the legislation and have contracted with Mid-Hudson Energy Transition to pursue this. We're a different operator than the ones that had the problems in other parts of the Hudson Valley.
So we're going to get a better supply contract. And we're not going to recommend a contract if they don't fully hedge the term of the contract. And you're right about the billing questions with Central Hudson. These crazy bills that people have been getting for months, that's whether you're in the CC or not, that's happening. So you're right about all those issues.
Any other questions? Or any other discussion on it? Randy?
So we'll have to clarify first. So what we're talking about with the opt-out CDG is actually a slice, a small portion of the residents of Kingston.
So about 40% of households would be eligible to enroll in opt-out CDG.
But the idea is that this would be within the larger CCA program.
Right.
And that it would help lower income people
Yeah.
to get even lower energy prices than the CCA.
Yes, and anybody, I should correct myself, everybody could join the opt-out CDG, but about how many customers would come in the first one? It's not like there's 10,000 households.
Well, you phase it because, you know, these solar projects are new projects. So a lot of CCAs that got renewable energy, these are existing renewable energy facilities that might have been around for 50 years. There are a lot of hydroelectric facilities and things like that. That's the renewable energy supply part of a CCA. With opt-out CDG, you're talking about actually building new solar farms to accommodate these subscriptions. You're enrolling people. So the first group that goes to get enrolled would be kind of prioritized in order of the census tracts. Kingston has disadvantaged community areas. They have people who are already enrolled in utility financial assistance programs. Those would be the first areas that would get enrolled. And then from there, you can go to the rest of the city.
The reason being because of the 10% savings, we want to prioritize that people who need it the most.
Yeah, the most important thing to me is the way CCA works right now. The people who are on a utility affordability programs can't participate because the Public Service Commission says we can't force those people or we can't allow those people to pay more, right? So you'd have a program in the city, but you know, 40% of your population wouldn't be able to join. Probably not 40%, because there's a lot of people who deserve to be in the utility affordability programs but haven't signed up. You know, that's a whole nother issue. But the main thing here is more fair and more beneficial because you guarantee the savings. You're guaranteed 10% savings on your bill. What could be wrong with that?
Right. And it's a bill crediting savings. So there's no, yeah, it's true. There have been problems with community solar, the opt-in version and getting people's bills correctly. But I think it's improved. The Public Service Commission has had another docket just on billing and crediting of net metering in those programs. So it's something that all the utilities have been working on for a couple of years and improving.
Right, so since this is also advocacy, I don't see how there's a downside for us at this point, because this is not the same thing as adopting this program. We're trying to make it available so that we can adopt it if it ultimately looks feasible for us.
And you can decide that later, you know, if it's reauthorized and a new law needs to be passed so that Kingston can do it, you can really dig in deep then and talk, you know, you can talk now, but you're absolutely right in pointing that out, that this is just a resolution giving yourself a choice in the future to do it or not do it, but at least you want to have the right to make this choice in the future. Barbara?
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, it looks like a great resolution. I just have like a question. I don't even know what company I signed up with, but through Central Hudson, and then, you know, you just get bombarded sometimes by all of these, and I picked one. And I don't know if it was one the county was favoring, like you got some money, $100. So I haven't been able to monitor the savings of it. And what would happen if there, you know, say I wanted to, what do I do if I'm switching? Because I like what you're doing. Like, am I just automatically with you? And I know
No, not if you're already enrolled.
If you're already in a community solar program or signed up for alternate supply on your bill, you will not be changed without your permission. But we're going to do really effective, loud public outreach to inform the public And actually, one of the questions I would have for all of you is if you could make suggestions to us on how you think we can avoid people looking at something in the mail and thinking it's garbage or spam, because we don't want that to happen. I mean, we could do large postcards with colors instead of an envelope big opener, or anything to try to get, and we're going into the community to talk to people face to face and what they know about it. We don't want to just slip something in a white envelope or little glass or, clear thing and people will throw it out.
Although these notification letters are highly regulated by the Public Service Commission, they tell you almost exactly what you need to write on them. And so there are things that could be done to make the city seal more prominent in the material so that it appears to be from a legitimate source. So those are the kinds of things that you can look into.
We could also do like we're gonna have a call line, a call support line. So at the bottom of the letter, have questions, is this real, call this number, and we're being hired to answer that phone. Yes.
I think what attracted me was $100 to sign up. Because, my mother was into coupons, but, I don't know if there could be
any incentive.
One of the ways I like to explain this program is, when you're doing a fundraiser and you buy supermarket gift cards and you pay $90 for a $100 gift card. You guys familiar with that? Like, so you get the value of $100, but you only pay $90 for it. That's what community solar bill credits are. That's what you're getting. You're getting $100 credited on your bill, but you're only paying $90 for the value of that. That's how come it's a guaranteed saving. So it is, each month it's its own little discount gift. But yeah, I mean, we could, I don't know, if we can actually give away Amazon cards.
Yes.
Well, I just want to note that sort of climate change in the living room issue here. We're talking about all the local benefits and everything. We're doing this because we have to address climate change. The city has a wonderful program to address climate change. This is an important piece of it. That alone, to me, is enough to justify supporting it. And if it's executed in a way that is fair, that has all the good things you're talking about, and that doesn't put people under the gun or cause them to misunderstand what's being offered them, it's a total. Thank you.
I mean, at the end of the day, if it's such a great program, then just leave it as an opt-in. I mean, that's what it is. Opting out, we've already adopted it.
Yeah, it's already.
We can make changes. We do it with everything. I mean, it's forced compliance. We're telling people, unless you're already enrolled in a program, you have no, you're forced into this, and then you have to jump through these hoops to get out of it.
But that's different, that's not what this is. That's not what we're
Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, to approve and implement an opt-out community distributed generation program in New York. That's actually, the resolution itself says it's an opt-out program.
The
So
resolution is to get them to establish.
The resolution is to request for adoption of a resolution in support of the Public Service Commission to authorize opt-out CDG. So in other words, we're just providing their support.
And if you scroll down.
Should they want to do that?
To the now therefore be it resolved, the council hereby supports the approval and implementation of the program and urges the PSC to take immediate action to bring the program's operation. That's at the state level. That's not here in Kingston. It's just asking the Public Service Commission to reauthorize a program that then Kingston would have to later decide if they actually want to do.
PSC is still not happy with it. The PSC was expected to restart the program pending new program operation oversight and enforcement rules. But a recent PSC order calls for more study of alternative to the opt-out CBJ.
So if we pass this, and then the Public Service Commission comes back and says, no,
That doesn't matter.
but if the Public Service Commission is content with any fixes that they're requesting, then it would come back to us, right? And then we would decide further. Is that correct?
Correct. So why wouldn't we just wait till we have the blessing? Till the PSC says, listen, we've reviewed everything. This is the best program. We give it our blessing.
Well,
But the PSC is saying, we don't like it right now. There's stuff in here we don't like.
Could definitely be an option, but just saying like we would like this in its best form to go through. And then it's up to the Public Service Commission, but then it will be back to us.
So either way, it's coming back to us. I mean, if we, because tonight, we're not, all we're doing is saying that we're advocating for this. We are supporting this. It's not, we're not saying that this, it's not even happening.
That's
It
right.
hasn't happened yet.
It's
It
not.
hasn't happened.
It
So
would give Kingston and every other municipality in New York another option.
another option, another choice. And then should they decide to do this, then it comes back to us anyway. I hear you, though. I hear you. Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Tony?
Yes, I hearing all the discussions, and again, and I believe Carl has brought it up, and listen, and the more choices, the better for our constituents. If they have more choices to choose between their energy bills, then more be it. And I know I brought that up, and I'm hearing what everybody's saying, that and before this is approved either way or not, the council will have a input into the language, if I'm hearing this right. So I don't see a problem, and I mean, I'm not on laws and rules, but I see no problem with moving forward with this. Is this a resolution? As long as it's giving people a choice, and before is anything finalized, we get to talk about and see what the verbiage is. So.
Right, and that could include having more specific language about opting in, making sure people are aware of how they can opt out of the program should they wish. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just viewing it more as a memorializing resolution to get the Public Service Commission to step, to do whatever the remedy. I keep pointing to your piece of paper there, because they're not going to okay it unless they're content. So, but it's a way of our Kingston to say we would like to move in that direction. And then, like we've all said, it involves them in their court. Yeah. To fix, to remedy what they see as problematic.
Okay. Are we satisfied? Any more discussion? No? All right, so we're gonna vote on this resolution that's before us. I will read it again. Request for adoption of a resolution in support of the Public Service Commission to authorize opt-out CDG. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposers? Barry is an opposer, so the resolution passes.
Thank you, and I also want to thank Susan and Brad and Dana for your attendance tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Okay, so with that, we're going to
Thank you very much.
move to our last agenda item, and that is Resolution 58 of 2023, authorizing the mayor to enter into a regulatory agreement with Village Crop Co. LLC and Kingston Workforce Housing Development Fund Corporation. So Will Walker is here tonight. Here you are. For any questions that we may have, please agree to come and answer those questions. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. All right, so any questions for Will? No questions? I get that. All right. All right, so there is a motion. Well, there is not a motion.
Well,
Yes.
I think there's maybe some point for clarity. So I just want to be clear that the upshot of the discussions with the mayor is to turn what's now a privately held for-profit entity into a state and city regulated not-for-profit.
Yes, it's a HDFC, which is a specific type of nonprofit that's allowed to own real estate.
And then the HDFC would be specific to this property, right? It's not like there's some large HDFC out there that you're joining. It's not like there's some other HDFC that you secretly created that you would be shunting this into.
No, there are existing HDFCs, and there would be a nominee structure under an existing HDFC.
Okay, and so this is similar to other HDFCs here in Kingston, like Rupco has several properties, the Energy Square, Lace Mill, we've got Springbrook Village. These are all HDFC, right? So a difference here, though, is that where those were established by those entities to get tax, to get assistance from federal and state entities in order to construct the properties. This would be a different process slightly because you're a private entity that would be moving into the not-for-profit entity. But the end result is basically the same, except there's no pilot agreement here, right? There's no monies that the city's providing.
Correct. So all of Rupco's properties have a nearly identical regulatory agreement, but all of them have it. But they did it at the county level, at the state level, but they never did it at the local.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Anything else?
Well, I guess the other thing is too, if you would clarify why the 120% AMI level is the crucial number. Why is it that number? Why is it not 100% or 150%? What makes 120% the magic number?
Sure. So the 120% has nothing to do with rents. ETPA, the Rent Guidelines Board, sets all rents. Current, future, ETPA is in effect sets rents. The 120% of AMI is for three reasons. There are several residents at the complex today that make between 100 and 120% of AMI, 115 and 120% of AMI that would be displaced on renewal. It's really primarily for the income test. So the income test. So it allows for two individuals to have a combined income of $112,000 approximately. And then the third reason is for funding. It's basically there's greater funding because of AMI. But the whole concept of this agreement was to have absolutely no adverse effects on any current resident. It was carefully constructed to not do that. So 120% of AMI, again, has nothing to do with rents. It is purely to get access to affordable funding.
That's not true. So I'm only going to say this one time. Okay?
Sorry, you looked at me and I thought you were asking. I'm not.
It's Jude, right?
I'm not.
Jude? I'm only gonna say it one time. If I have to say it again, I'm going to ask you to leave. Okay? So you said that it's not gonna have any negative or adverse effects. That's because all of the tenants in the building now are currently protected under ETPA, right? That's not going to change.
Correct.
Should this agreement go forth, that will not change.
Correct.
Any new tenants coming in will still be protected under it.
Correct. And any example in the past where a new resident has come in and there's been a disagreement on rent and they've gone to DHCR, 100% of the time, the resident has prevailed and gets essentially a penalty, which is 3x the rent difference that they paid as essentially a fine for non-compliance. So at any time, a resident, if they feel like there's non-compliance with ETPA, can file a case with DHCR, which is handled case by case, and all case law, at least that I'm aware of, has chosen the side of the resident always when there's a concurrent regulatory grant in ETPA.
Okay. And so you, as an owner, you will not be able to set any rents or anything because that would be established by the Rent Guidelines Board under the ETPA.
Yes, correct. ETPA has all the units registered as of August 1st.
The other question, so I know that some units there are owned by Gateway, or they have tenants, or they have some units there.
Yep.
They're currently also under the ETPA, and anyone that they bring in would still be under that.
Yes. No different. I mean, you don't take my word for it. I think there have been a lot of attorneys, I'm not an attorney, full disclosure, that have opined on the language. I mean, I've been providing everyone with the document at this point, so there's no misinformation.
Yes.
Barbara, my apologies for putting you on the spot right here, but from what the questions that Rita was asking and the answers that we got, from a legal standpoint, has any of that information been false?
False.
Correct. Like the questions Rita asked and the answers we have gotten from a legal perspective representing corporate counsel, has any of that information that he has provided to Rita's questions been incorrect?
I suggest we go into attorney-client privilege if we're going to discuss that. I mean, session.
That's right, I agree with you.
Oh.
All right, everybody, we're going into attorney-client session, so we're gonna ask you all to leave for the time being. We want to wait in chambers, and we'll come get you when we're out. Thank you. Tony, you want to call me?
Yes.
Naima, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
So you're going to, why don't we? Naima can call me. Oh, okay. So Naima, once we
I'm still here.
You go in, you can call me, and I'll just put you on speaker, okay?
All right.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah. That just got.
You can go before we go out, you want to take a break?
Yeah.
So I have to get off of this, right?
Well, so.
So, yeah, I'm gonna log off, Tony. Tony,
All
you
right.
call me, Naima, you call Rita. Oops, not log off.
Tony, turn off your camera
All right, thank you.
and your speaker.
Yes.
You can stay in.
Maddie, shine.
there any further discussion?
Yeah. Do we have another motion to approve this?
I think so. All right.
Send it back to the council.
Since Egbert goes back on.
Should. Will this go back automatically?
Well, I opened it because,
Or do we need to
I
vote?
opened it because there's so many people, it seems like we should have circulation. Ask that one?
So the resolution, do we actually have to vote to send it back to the full council?
Yes.
Yeah, because we would have to, anytime we have to opt in, the 43, whatever that was, the committee endorse it.
Okay.
So we have. That's all. It's not-
Yeah.
I look good on TV.
Yeah,
not so bad myself.
Carl, you're on. Hello? Are you on? Oh. Oh.
I don't have.
So I thought, I got confused. Sorry. Yes.
Maybe. I need
I'll go get one.
I think they turned the heat off at 5 o'clock. I think.
Yes. I'm just waiting for it to come.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Andrea. I need a report, a committee report.
Yeah, sorry, it's mine. Thank you.
Okay, so we are back in session, and I'm going to, before we move forward, I'm going to ask if there is any other discussion on this matter. Yes.
Yes, so again, I'm directing this question to corporate counsel. Based on the current version of the agreement, has Will made any misrepresentations here tonight?
Mr. Parker is not made any policy.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah. I would like to say that my sense is that the agreement as it stands protects the current tenants under DTPA. That is the overarching set of rules. It also protects all future members, future renters at the facility at Stony Run. They will also, as long as ETPA is in effect, they will be covered by ETPA. I believe too that time is of the essence. We've seen a really disturbing event over the past weekend, the failure of 2 important banks. Concerns are high, as far as I'm concerned, about the ability to obtain loans and to make these kinds of processes go forward. So I think it's up to the council to take decisive action. And in order to protect the tenants as well, what we need to do is go ahead and move to accept this resolution so that the mayor has the power, if necessary, before or during or after he meets with tenants, that he will be able to see this through. So I move that we accept the resolution and send this back to full council.
Motion?
No.
Which one? I think I saw Carl's hand go up first. Motion, so I have Rennie, second by Carl. Any discussion on this? No? All in favor? Any opposers? So, it's so moved. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the mayor to enter into a regulatory agreement with Village Prop Co. LLC and Kingston Workforce Housing Development Fund Corporation. That was the last agenda item. So if there's no other comments, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. No? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about that. So with this having passed out of committee, so I'm going to request that we call a special council meeting. To send this back to the full council for a vote.
So the way the process works with that is I prefer to follow the two ways. I could just call it, but I would like to have a majority of the council request this of me to make sure this is something that the council wants. And this would be including Michelle and Tony Naive as well. So I guess I will just call for a vote on who's in favor of me calling a special common council meeting.
And can we show by show of hands?
Tony, would you be in favor? Naima? So everybody, Michelle, opposed?
I'm not necessarily opposed. I'm opposed to having a council meeting before the mayor meets with the tenants and they all sit down and they are all up to speed. So that's.
Right, which would be the 27th. So if we're gonna wait till then, we just wait until April 4th. Does everybody stand for their vote, even with Michelle bringing up that point? Does anybody not stand for their vote? Okay, then tomorrow morning I will call a special council meeting.
Thank you. All right, now I'll call for a motion to adjourn. All right, with that, we are adjourned.
Yeah, we got some. Stay.